Welcome back to the channel. This week we will be reviewing Dennis E. Taylor's Bobverse Book 4, Heaven's River. I know it's been a while since I've done a Bobverse book review, so if you guys want to catch up, I will leave a link to the Bobverse playlist if you guys want to get caught up and rewatch the old videos. As always, format for the video, summary of the story, pros, cons, and then my final thoughts and ranking for the book. So without any further ado, let's hit the intro. After the destruction of the other's homeworld, the Bobverse is pretty much at peace, but not entirely. There is this discontent for the senior Bobs that has started to grow and is coming to a head. Bob 1 goes on the search for their long-lost friend, Bender. When they finally find Bender, they find this massive megastructure that has been constructed out in space. Bob 1 and a couple of the other clones go in to investigate the megastructure to try and find Bender, but what they find instead is completely not what they had expected to find in the megastructure. Starting off with the pro section, first pro I'm going to talk about is Bob 1's reaction to the changes that have been happening to the Bobverse. I'm going to give Dennis E. Taylor a whole ton of credit for how he writes Bob 1's reaction to all the crazy changes that have happened inside the Bobverse. Because for the most part, Bob 1's more or less been secluded with the Deltons dealing with all that. So he's missed quite a bit of the changes that have taken place in the Bobverse. So I feel like Dennis E. Taylor does an excellent job writing Bob 1's reaction. He very much seems like a fish out of water. He's reading all the updates and I was like, what the heck is going on? What has been happening? And his reaction is very good, and it definitely sells that the Bobverse has changed so much, and I really do think Taylor did a really good job selling Bob 1's reaction to all of the changes. Again, I think Taylor does an excellent job selling Bob's reaction as a fish out of water, trying to navigate the new political situation within the Bobverse. And it really does make the book really good. Second thing I'm going to discuss for the pro section is the actual changes that have happened within the Bobverse itself. Since the others have pretty much been annihilated by the Bobs, there has been this group within the Bobs called Starfleet. They are very much inspired by Star Trek's Starfleet with the whole Prime Directive. Even within the series, they make so many jokes about it. But it's what Starfleet represents that really interests me in this book, because Starfleet's entire thing is we are super advanced society. We should not be involved with what they call ephemerals, aka the human race in general, or other sentient races. I really like that as an approach because it's a different sort of antagonist from the other. It's very much a political, ideological antagonist. And it is very much a big threat within this book in particular. And I really like how Taylor weaves Starfleet's entire story through the overarching story of what's going on in the background of the Bobverse. The other thing that Taylor really does very well in this book is distinguishing the older generation clones, like the ones that were first cloned by Bob 1 and the newest generation Bobs. Because Taylor really makes a point when he's seeing all the changes within the Bob society. Taylor makes a very big point. The newer Bobs are not Bobs. They very much drifted away from the prime Bob. The newer Bobs are more or less unrecognizable, aside from physically from the Bobs. Physically, they still look like the Bobs, but personality-wise, that has shifted way into left field. Taylor does another great job distinguishing the older generation clones from the newer ones. The newer ones are the guys that are more involved with Starfleet and that whole thing. So it's very good to see that big distinction being drawn within the Bob society itself. Like I said in my first thing I talked about, Bob 1's reaction as sort of this pseudo man out of time approach that Taylor takes with this book is awesome. Because again, we are seeing all of the changes that have happened through Bob 1's perspective. And as we're going through, we're seeing the Bobs change, and we're reacting to it the same time as Bob 1's reacting to it. So it is a very good raw reaction that really sells this book as much as it does. Third thing I want to talk about is the more structured setup for this book. Unlike the first 3 books, which kind of meandered through a bunch of different plot points as the story went on, Heaven's River is really more structured because it mostly focuses on Bob 1 and the other clones' attempts to go and rescue Bender from the Heaven's River megastructure. It's a lot more focused, and I think this is a very much better idea. Because as much as I like the first 3 books, they can get very just meandering and lose the overall story. They're still good books, but the structure of them is kind of meandering. So I really like how Heaven's River focuses mostly on the one major plot point with the rescue mission. There are a couple of side plots, but those are hardly as important to the overall story. They don't interfere with the rescue mission as much. They are sort of their own thing, and a bunch of them really do showcase the changes that have happened, but for the most part, it's just the Heaven's River rescue mission is the main focus of this book. I feel like that was a very much needed change because, like I said, the plot points are okay in the first book, but Taylor sort of lets the plot points run wild and sort of overtake the main story, whereas Heaven's River, like I said, it's a lot more structured, which I really do like, because that's a lot better than just having half a dozen plot points jumping into main story. The side plots are still there, but they are very much more contained to the background, and it allows the main story to sort of breathe and develop a lot more naturally than if Taylor had put a dozen subplots that are just as important as the main plot into this book. There's 3 or 4 subplots that aren't as important as the main Heaven's River plot, and I really do like that. So coming to the con section, I'm going to talk about Bill's weird D&D revenge plot that randomly comes up in this book. One of the side plots that really comes up in this book is with Bill. He is playing these D&D games the Bobs have created in their VR, but it really takes a very weird turn because Bill steals a magic item from one of the other players, and then the one player that he steals it from takes revenge, and then there's this very weird plot where their next D&D game, the one player he stole it from starts randomly setting them up for a big failure in a quest. I kind of understand what Taylor was going with. He wanted to show that the Bobs have really gone off the rails with this one. But I'm like, is the D&D revenge plot the most effective way to show that? When most of your book is just displaying how different the Bobs have become? I don't feel like the D&D plot thing really needed to be there to showcase what your book was already showcasing so well in the first place. I mean, it kind of comes out of nowhere. It doesn't derail from the story that much, but I was thinking, like, really? You're showcasing how the Bobs are so much different, so much more effectively in other ways. Was the D&D plot line really needed? And I would arguably say no, because it just comes out of nowhere and it's random. So I feel like if Taylor had cut out that one part of the book overall wouldn't suffer too much. So, final thoughts on the book here. I really do like how well written Bob 1's reactions to all the changes that he's seeing within the Bobiverse are written. I really like how Dennis C. Taylor made Bob 1 the man out of time. Even though he started all this, he really does feel like an outsider to the rest of the Bobiverse nowadays. And I really love how Dennis C. Taylor was able to put such a stark line down the sand between the old generation Bobs and the new generation Bobs. And I love how Dennis C. Taylor was able to make such a good and well-written distinction between the two. And I really like how this book is shaped. I like the more streamlined flow of this book. The first 3 books were kind of meandering at points, but I really do like the streamlined narrative of this book as opposed to sort of the more meandering plotline of the first three. I feel like that more focused plot helps the book overall. It flows so much better than the first three books. And I really feel like this is the best of the four that have come out so far. I'm going to give Tennessee Taylor's Heaven's River a 9 out of 10. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, do not forget, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you do not miss the next video. If you guys want to see more of my videos, I will link to my last video I dropped, which was my Taking the Red Rising Knowledge Quiz video. If you guys missed that, you guys can go and rewatch that. If you guys want to rewatch the Bobbyverse series, I will leave a link to that playlist up in the cards so you guys can go and rewatch those videos. If you guys want to chat with me on social media, my Instagram is Riley Murray Book Reviews and my Twitter is Riley T. Murray. I will leave links to both of those accounts down in the description. If you guys got book reviews you want me to do in the future, please leave them down in the comments. I will see you next week for our next video. Hope you guys have a great week and don't forget, keep on reading.